So that was Alberto Borghini then welcoming us all to what is going to be something of a truncated Ferrari show, brought about by virtue of the fact that the weather conditions have been so tricky here at Mugello, but welcome nonetheless. And now we can see Ferrari Challenge cars which are representing all of the regions: Europe, North America, the UK, Japan, Australasia, and of course new for 2026, the Middle East. So the global Ferrari Challenge. So we are looking at Ferrari Challenge 296 cars that are representing the 6 geographical regions. And hello to everyone from the Alessandria Scuderia Ferrari Club. But the cars then representing the regions of Europe, North America, the UK, Japan, Australasia, and also the Middle East. All of these regions with their own Ferrari Challenge Championship from 2026. So the global appeal of this wonderful one-make series of the Ferrari Challenge gets ever bigger. And the Ferrari Challenge cars for your interest are being driven by Christian Colombo, Stefano Gai, also Simone Mediani, Andrea Fausti, and Mastronardi are also at the wheel of these wonderful 296 Challenge cars around the 5.245 kilometer Mugello Circuit. Some great shots then of these cars that are doing what these cars have done all weekend long. Well, in fact, all week long here in Mugello, as Finali Mondiali forms the final races for Ferrari Challenge racing in both Europe and North America. Champions had already been crowned when it came to the UK, Japan, and Australasia. So about to complete a lap here as they head through the chicane and head to the final turn. These truly wonderful Ferrari Challenge 296 cars representing, as I say, every region that will have its own Ferrari Challenge Championship from 2026. Once again, Europe, North America, the UK, Japan, Australasia, and new for next year, the Middle East, as the cars come into the pit lane. So, with the activities there being shown, we get ready for one of the most exciting parts of the Ferrari show, which always forms part of Finali Mondiali, and that is the F1 show. You can see 3 Formula One cars here, SF21 and SF71H. The cars are going to be driven by Olivia Beretta driving an SF21, Andrea Bertolini who will drive an SF21, and Giancarlo Fisichella who will drive an SF71H. Those are the 3 Formula One cars that you can see. What a brilliant overhead shot that we have here. I'll give you some of the information about the cars in due course, but this is wonderful. And this is so much a part of the Finali Mondiali event. It is the F1 show here, live from Mugello. Cars are running. The tire blankets are coming off. And this is the F1 show here with Olivia Beretta, Andrea Bertolini, and Giancarlo Fisichella out of the pit lane to hear these wonderful Ferrari F1 cars. Bear in mind, extraordinarily difficult conditions here for our drivers. Our drivers then, Olivier Beretta, Andrea Bertolini, and Giancarlo Fisichella. Now, to give you some information about the F1 cars that you're seeing here, the Ferrari SF21 made its debut back in March 2021, but raced first at the 21 Bahrain Grand Prix. Drivers, of course, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz Jr. The car took 5 podiums, 2 pole positions. The Ferrari SF71H, well, it made its debut back in 2018 and raced for the first time at the 2018 Australian Grand Prix. Drivers at that time, of course, Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen, with 6 wins, 6 poles, and some 24 podiums, representing significant success. Now, the configuration of the cars, the SF21, obviously a carbon fiber monocoque based on the SF1000, the engine, the Ferrari 0656, 1.6-litre V6 turbo hybrid with MGUH and MGUK energy recovery. Transmission, an 8-speed semi-automatic with reverse rear-wheel drive, 752 kilograms. Suspension was pushrod front and pull-rod rear. Fuel and lubricants, Shell V-Power and Shell Helix Ultra, and the tyres, of course, the Pirelli P0 range. Now, the SF71H, again, carbon fiber monocoque, but with aluminium honeycomb composite structure. The engine was the Ferrari 062 Evo, 1.6-litre V6 turbo hybrid, again, with MGUH and MGUK energy recovery. Wonderful to see those cars, these cars, here at Mugello. Absolutely thrilling the crowds here as part of Finali Mondiali. And now it's time just to have a listen to these remarkable cars.
Ecco il passaggio delle F1 sul traguardo, si fermano per lo start.
So what we're going to have here is a mock start with these 3 cars. How exciting is this? Stand by, hold on to your ears, hold on to any loose clothing. This is going to be magnificent stuff. The F1 show, Finali Mondiali, ready to go. Olivia Beretta, Andrea Bertolini and Giancarlo Fisichella doing their level best to get the power down, but very difficult to hold on to these cars in these conditions. Very, very difficult indeed. However, all cars pointing in the right direction, thankfully. So parade laps of these SF21s, 2 of those, and of course the SF71H as well. So this only one part of our show here at Finali Mondiali, and it is wonderful to see here. And of course, wonderful for everyone that is here to be able to experience these truly, truly historic cars from the Prancing Horse at the Mugello Circuit, driven by Olivia Beretta, Andrea Bertolini and Giancarlo Fisichella. Well, of course, were the weather conditions dry, we would actually hear these cars properly screaming. But for now, let's just enjoy the sound of these F1 cars. Up next in our Ferrari show, it is going to be our GT3 show. And there we take a look as the GT3 Evo makes its way down the pit lane. We've got 3 GT3 cars, and the 54 car being driven by Davide Rigon. The number 51 being driven by Alessio Rovera. And then driving the Evo, it is Lilu Vadu. So all official Ferrari factory drivers at the wheels of the GT3 cars in our GT3 show. So it's no easier for the drivers of our GT3 cars to keep those pointing in the right direction in these very challenging conditions here at Mugello. Once again, the 54 car being driven by Davide Rigon, the number 51 being driven by Alessio Rovera, and then the GT3 Evo being driven by Lilu Radu. GT3, of course, such a huge part of motorsport landscape, of which Ferrari has been so hugely successful over more years than any of us care to remember, I feel sure. And here at Mugello is a truncated GT3 show by dint of the weather conditions, but here Davide Rigon, Alessio Rovera and Lilu Radu, all Ferrari factory drivers in those GT3 cars, and especially special, if there is such a phrase. Of course, the GT3 Evo being driven by Lilu Radu right at the back of this pack right now. First of the cars, number 51 being driven by Alessio Rovera. It's Davide Rigon driving the number 54 car with Lilu Radu in that very car, which is center screen right now, which is the GT3 Evo. The Ferrari 296 GT3, two of those, and GT3 Evo as well on the Mugello circuit as part of the GT3 show here, which in turn is part of the Ferrari Show of Finali Mondiali. Davide Rigon, Alessio Rovera and Lilu Radu driving these cars around the Mugello circuit to the delight of the spectators that are here to enjoy, and now bringing those cars back into the pit lane. Well done, and thank you to all three of them. Look at these cars. If 3 years ago you'd have predicted that Ferrari, upon return to the top class of Le Mans racing with the hypercar, would win the Le Mans 24-hour race 3 times in a row, wouldn't have been so many people that would have been prepared to take that bet. But what a phenomenal success story this car and driver combination has been. So, the Le Mans 499P cars, hypercar out on track behind the safety car. Now, the drivers of these cars, the number 51 car will be driven appropriately by Alessandro Pierguidi. The number 50 car will be driven by Niklas Nielsen, but that number 83 car driven by Robert Kubica. So, of course, these hypercars have been tremendously successful. 3 years in a row, they have won the Le Mans 24-hour race. And members of the teams, of course, driving the cars: Robert Kubica, Niklas Nielsen, and Alessandro Pierguidi. Now, bear in mind, of course, across all of the cars, there are another 2 drivers in addition to Robert Kubica, Niklas Nielsen, and Alessandro Pierguidi. For example, in the number 51 with Alessandro Pierguidi, of course, sharing driving duties with James Collado and Antonio Giovinazzi. In the number 50 car, which is being driven by Niklas Nielsen, the driving duties were shared also with Antonio Fuoco and Miguel Molina. And then in this year's winning car, the number 83 499P, driven by Robert Kubica here as part of the Ferrari Show, but also driven by Lanson and Yifei. Just for clarity, I think driving the safety car is Antonio Tamburini, leading these fantastic 499P hypercars around the Mugello circuit. Just to remind you of the 83 being driven by Robert Kubica, the number 50 by Niklas Nielsen, and the number 51 by Alessandro Pierguidi, as the Italian flag is waved by Antonio Canu. Rolling start for these 3 cars. And the other drivers, of course, as Robert Kubica just kicks out the back end of the car there. Trust me, the rest of the drivers that form part of the hypercar teams will be joining us as well. So we are looking at the victorious Le Mans winning hypercars for Ferrari. 3 cars for 3 years in a row. Ferrari has won Le Mans again and again and again. 3 years in a row. And in 2026, of course, back at Le Mans with the hypercar, and not only because we will be returning with the Ferrari Challenge to support the 24 hours of Le Mans. So it'll be a big year at the Circuit de la Sarthe for Ferrari. High-speed passage then from the hypercars. The 83 car driven by Robert Kubica, the number 50 car driven by Niklas Nielsen, and Alessandro Pierguidi at the helm of the number 51. The conclusion then of the Le Mans 499P part of the show, the Le Mans show, as part of the Ferrari show here at Finali Mondiali. Once again, our big thanks to Robert Kubica, Niklas Nielsen, and Alessandro Pierguidi driving those cars in pretty tricky conditions here at the Mugello Circuit for Finali Mondiali. Now, as I mentioned, the drivers are going to be joined by the other drivers from the respective cars. So for the number 83, of course, that will be Phil Hansen and Yifei. For the number 50, it will be Antonio Fuoco and Miguel Molina. And for the number 51 car driven by Alessandro Pierguidi, he of course will be joined by James Collado and Antonio Giovinazzi. So here we can see those complete driver lineups. There's Phil Hansen and Yifei joining on the number 83 car, piloted by Kubica. There's Miguel Molina, Antonio Fuoco, together with Niklas Nielsen, and James Collado, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Alessandro Pierguidi at the wheel. So our complete driver crew for these wonderful 499P Le Mans cars, the hypercars. And of course, the applause. And doubtless, Alberto will be in there to speak to some of the drivers. And we'll be bringing you the translation of the interviews. Grand applauso then to salute our drivers. A number of the drivers, of course, will speak in English language, which is pleasing, but some will speak in Italian. So the Scuderia Ferrari Club being welcomed. So here's Antonio Giovinazzi.
Grazie a tutti per il supporto, per essere qui. È bello, no? Essere qui e festeggiare un'altra 24 ore di Le Mans, e speriamo che tra un mese possiamo festeggiare qualcos'altro.
Ciao ragazzi, ciao a tutti, è sempre un piacere essere qua fermi sul rettilineo e guardare queste tribune piene di rosso, quindi non sappiamo mai come ringraziarvi, sappiamo che non ci fate mai mancare il vostro supporto e ci servirà ancora tra 15 giorni, quindi tifate per noi e grazie per essere qui anche con questo tempo, il calore per Ferrari è sempre incredibile.
So there, an example of our XX programs. Which we can see there in film. Alberto Borghini is still down there, but here are our XX programs cars, followed by our challenge cars representing all regions. And here is Alberto Borghini talking to Yifei.
Sono molto orgoglioso di essere qui e sento il vincitore di 24 ore di Le Mans quest'anno insieme a Robert Kubica e Phil Hansen. Ho vissuto di nuovo la sensazione quando ho passato la linea con la bandiera in mano, quindi veramente grazie a tutti voi e grazie alla squadra di Ferrari per un eccellente lavoro.
We can see the XX Programs cars, we can see the GT3 cars and also the Challenge cars as well. All being brought in for a photograph with the F1 cars and of course with the hypercars as well. Here's Alberto with somebody really rather important to the Le Mans program.
Se vi ricordate 3 anni fa, nel 2022, che abbiamo presentato la 499P per la prima volta, ne abbiamo fatta di strada, abbiamo vinto 3 Le Mans consecutive, nessuno l'avrebbe detto forse in quel momento. Grazie davvero a tutti, perché essere qui davanti a tutti voi è davvero speciale. E un ringraziamento da parte vostra a tutta la squadra che c'è dietro, perché sono dei ragazzi fantastici. Grazie di tutto.
See from some of the top management potentially now then.
Dietro giornate come queste c'è un lavoro di tutto il team enorme, e poter vedere così tante persone, i nostri clienti, i nostri piloti e tutti i nostri dipendenti e gli amici della Ferrari è un ringraziamento per il nostro lavoro incredibile, per cui è bellissimo, c'è un calore pazzesco e ci spinge a fare sempre meglio. Quindi grazie a tutti, grazie al team che ha lavorato a questo progetto, e stiamo già lavorando anche all'anno prossimo.
Up next we will hear perhaps from Antonello Colletta, Global Head of Endurance and Corsa Clienti.
Grazie a tutti, perché come hanno detto i miei colleghi precedentemente abbiamo bisogno del supporto di tutti, e quello che stiamo ricevendo è veramente un grande gesto d'affetto, soprattutto da quando siamo partiti con la nuova avventura nell'endurance, e in giornate come queste che purtroppo con il tempo non ci stanno aiutando, ma voi siete incredibili perché siete lì stoici da stamattina, non vi siete persi nulla, e dunque grazie per il vostro supporto e per la vostra pazienza.
The architect of so much success, Antonello Colletta. Also here, Chief Executive Officer, of course, Mr. Benedetto Vigna.
Io vedevo prima il cartello, no? Grazie Ferrari. Stavo pensando che il grazie invece lo fa la Ferrari a tutti voi, ai clienti, ai tifosi, alle famiglie dei colleghi, ai colleghi. Grazie. E poi godiamoci questo momento, perché è unico avere qui in prima fila tre auto Ferrari che hanno vinto 3 Le Mans di fila. È un momento stupendo.
So everything being prepared for Ilaria Della Bidia is going to be here to sing the national anthem here at Finali Mondiali. Well, there we have it then. The national anthem sung by Ilaria Della Bidia. The tricolor smoke and fireworks, of course. The top management of Ferrari and all of those wonderful cars and drivers kind of bring to a conclusion what has been a truncated Ferrari show, but a nonetheless emotive and fantastic Ferrari show here at Finali Mondiali. As everyone is together for the final group photograph from us here, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And that's it. Ferrari Show for 2025 at Finali Mondiali.